come on in.
So thank you everyone for joining us today. Ahead of the official start to the meeting, we will just review a basic Zoom orientation for anyone who's joining us who may not be familiar with the platform. Using the Zoom, you have a toolbar. With this, you can mute and unmute yourself. We do ask that during the presentation portion, you remain muted unless there's an opportunity for questions, just so we don't incur any background noise. You can also turn your video on and off, especially during the discussion periods. That's always nice to be able to see the faces we're communicating with. We do have the chat function that will be open, so you're welcome to enter chat, and that will go to the project team. And we are recording today's meeting just for documentation purposes. And then also there's a screen view, so if you'd like to see the screen in a different way or the people on the screen a different way, you can use that screen view button. We recommend using gallery view so you can see everyone who's actively speaking. And with that, I think that covers most of the Zoom. I'm going to do a quick check to see if we've hit quorum, and then I will let you know. If that sounds good, Adam.
Thank you, Delia. Yes.
So if I'm correct, we're at 8, so we are 1 shy.
Okay, Delia, we're also at about 5 after, so I think we don't have to, take any action for a little bit. So I think we should start in on courtesy to everybody who's here, and you can just let me know when we get one other that joins us, if that works for you.
That's fine. Thank you very much.
Okay. So we will start with a call to order and the roll call. Again, my name is Adam Luigi. I am the chair of the policy committee. Delia, would you help us with the rest of the roll call?
I would. Thank you, Adam. I'll be going down.
Delia, sorry to interrupt. Mike, can you go back to the agenda slide? I think we just need to call out that there are no changes to the agenda.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's entirely fair. I guess I should ask whether anyone would like any changes to the agenda. Okay, hearing none. There are no changes to the agenda, and now we can go forward with the roll call.
Thanks, Stephanie. Thanks, Adam. So I will go down the list, starting with our voting members here. So Adam Luigi.
Here.
Bill Smith. Katie Gallagher.
Here.
Welcome. Brent Rakowski. Clark Hinsdale. Representative Lanfer.
Here.
Welcome. Dickie Austin.
Here.
Hello. Representative McGill. Ron Redmond.
Here.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Jeff Nelson. Jesse Devlin. Matthew Orencio.
Here.
Hello, Matt. Mary Rudd.
Here.
Welcome. Representative Barong.
Present.
Welcome. Mike Audie. Rennie Perry. Phil Summers.
Here.
And Rhonda Williams.
Here.
Welcome. So actually we are good with our quorum that we have 10 voting members. So thank you everyone for joining us. We'll move on to our non-voting members, consultant team, and other attendees. So for our non-voting members, please let us know if you're here today. Amy Bell?
Yes, I'm here.
Welcome, Amy. Joel Perigo? Mike Winslow?
I'm here.
Hello. And Patrick Kirby? Oh, and I'm sorry, Jacqueline, I skipped you. Jacqueline Dement?
I'm here.
Thank you. Sorry
here.
about that. And Patrick?
I'm here.
Sorry for any confusion. And then I want to welcome representatives from our consulting team from WSP. I believe, please speak up if I miss you, but we have Stephanie Kamei.
Yes, here, and just one follow-up, Faith Dahl, I think, is also with Amy, and she's with V-Trans.
Oh, my apologies. Welcome, Faith. Steve Chiramonte with WSP.
Good afternoon.
Welcome. Laura Toole with WSP.
Here.
Maya Miller with WSP.
Hello.
Hi, Maya. And Annabelle Daly with WSP.
Here, good morning, good afternoon.
With Du Bois and King, I believe I see Amy Rutledge. And Ken Roby.
I'm here. Good afternoon, everybody.
Welcome. Am I missing anyone else from D&K?
I don't believe so.
Okay. And Trip from Arnett, Muldrow and Associates.
I'm here.
Welcome. And then Jim Gish, are you joining us from VHB?
I am here. Hello, everyone.
Welcome. So now we want the opportunity for any attendees from the public who may be joining us. Please feel free to unmute and introduce yourself so we can make a note for the meeting minutes.
Hi, Janice Bosworth, just interested in hearing how the meeting goes. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Ted Ted Bullens, just an interested citizen.
Welcome, Ted.
And I'm Tim Cowan, a resident of Vergennes.
Alan Morey from Vergennes.
Welcome to you both. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear that. I also see Terry Pelletier in the chat from Panton.
I think Mel wants to go, so I'd say go ahead, Mel.
Yeah, Mel.
Yeah, I'm Mel Hawley. I'm a Vergennes resident and own the property immediately to the west of Otter Creek Mobile Home Park.
Thank you, Mel. Appreciate you joining us today. I'm looking down the list.
Linda Harmon here, also a Vergennes resident and business owner on Main Street.
Thank you, Linda. Liz, are you joining us from? You're also joining us. I believe you introduced yourself earlier before we started. All right. Anyone else who hasn't had an opportunity? All right. I think we've. If there's anyone else I've missed, please speak up.
I'm Julie Basel with Vergennes Partnership.
Oh, thank you, Julie. Okay. I think I can hand it back over.
Great. Delia, would you move us on to the next slide, please?
Sure. Thank you, Adam.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wanted to make sure this was where we were. So we are offering members of the public who are here the opportunity to make a short comment. We've got about 10 minutes on our agenda for public comments. So don't know how many of you want to speak. But if you do, now's your opportunity. I would ask you to keep it concise so everybody has a chance. Go ahead, sir.
I'm Alan Morey, and I've been thinking about the bypasses. Until we get the new roads or bypasses built, why don't we go Route 17 7 northbound and southbound. Forget going through Vergennes at all. And I see a lot of truckers coming from the Rutland area, going past 7 and 17 junction, coming all the way to Vergennes, and then heading south on 22A. So we could put a sign there at the 7 and 17 junction to have the truckers go on 17 from 7 when they're heading 7 north, and 22A heading north, they can go on 17. That would eliminate any truck traffic through Vergennes. And the other comment I have is the routes through the Otter Creek Park, the 2 routes there, what is it, pink and light blue, you can eliminate those. And the one coming up the hill and going on to McDonough Drive, you can eliminate those because McDonough Drive, who's going to have the right of way? The trucks can't stop on the hill. So how are you going to have traffic flow? When the cars see a trucker coming up the hill, they're going to have to stop, which only makes sense, but that's just going to be a kerfuffle. So that's my comment.
Great, thank you for your comments. Are there any other members of the public that would like to make comments? Okay, hearing none, then let us move on into the presentation itself. Stephanie, would you like to take it over from here?
Yes, thank you, Adam, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm going to start with an overview of the PEL study and how we got to where we are today. You can go to the next slide. The Route 22A corridor has been studied for over 25 years, and our goal with the PEL study is to take those previous planning studies and then link the planning efforts with future environmental review. So we're looking to gather enough detail so that the information developed can be utilized in a future environmental process, which would be under the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA. And then in addition with the PEL study is we're really making a concentrated effort on outreach and engagement, and really making sure that the community is informed and involved in the process as we develop transportation solutions. So next slide, Maya. The PEL study is an approximately 3-year process, and we are nearing the end of that process, which is really exciting. The last time we met with you, we reviewed the conceptual designs. These, the alternatives that have progressed through the initial screening will be integrated with the land use visioning and then evaluated further. So some of those comments that were made earlier, those will be things we'll be looking at, with traffic, environmental, all of those pieces that really tie back to the purpose and need. And we'll talk a little bit more about that today. And then public engagement opportunities will be ongoing, have been ongoing, and will continue to be ongoing throughout the study. So next slide, please. So PEL is the planning process, and within the defined phases of the VTrans project lifecycle, PEL fits into project initiation. So the PEL study will be complete in 2025. And then the next step will be to authorize funding. Once funding authorization occurs, any future alternatives, so any alternatives that come out of the PEL study, will then move forward through additional phases. So there'll be conceptual design, environmental review, preliminary and final design, right-of-way, and then finally construction. Next slide, please. So prior to this meeting, we shared the land use, a draft of the land use visioning technical memo with the policy committee. And during today's meeting, we'd like to get your consensus on that tech memo. That's one piece of the overall PEL study. With that in mind, though, I do want to remind everyone that PEL is a planning process, and please remember that we're still at that planning stage. So the goal of PEL is to reduce the number of alternatives and then to identify potential impacts, identify potential mitigation that will all be looked at further during NEPA. So we're looking for a decision, but all of these recommendations, all of these decisions are really recommendations only, and they're not binding until we enter NEPA. So I'll pause here if there's any questions from the committee. Okay, then we'll move on to the next slide, Maya. So just as a reminder, as I start the land use visioning, I just want to remind you that we are looking at the alternatives that we're looking at are 4 new roadways, along with an option that uses existing roadways. So the Route 17, Route 7 option. And then per NEPA, we are also considering a no-build option, a no-build alternative that assumes no changes beyond normal routine maintenance. So the 5 build alternatives are shown on the figure to the right here. And all of these route alternatives, they have strengths, they have weaknesses, and then they have opportunities. And our team will be continuing to evaluate these alternatives throughout the PEL study. Next slide. So again, in advance of this meeting, we did share a draft of the technical memo that outlines the land use visioning process that our team undertook over the last 6 months at the end of last year and then in the beginning of this year. And then to recap that process, so we reviewed existing data, we looked at zoning data, planning, policy review. We also met with all of the planning commissions in the 7 municipalities. And then we held a series of land use visioning workshops, which I assume many of the members of the public attended, and many of our policy committee members also attended those workshops. So we thank you for that support as well. And during the workshops, we really wanted to get input on the surrounding lands for each of the proposed route alternatives. Using the input from the workshops, as well as the existing conditions review, we then developed draft land use visions. So these scenarios will be included in the implementation plan, which is part of the final PEL study. And they'll be in the form of land use recommendations that will guide the implementation of a future alternative and then inform the planning work within each of the study area communities. So they're guidelines that will help support the community's vision if one of those alternatives were to move forward. So the land use visioning scenarios were shared with the 7 PEL study municipalities during a second round of planning commission meetings. And we did provide another opportunity for review and then just to really discuss any planning implications within their individual communities. The tech memo, again, was shared with you. It was reviewed by the VTrans, ACRPC, and then we did share it with a subset of the technical committee. If you recall, our technical committee is really kind of our experts in various fields. And we share materials with them to really make sure that we got our methodology correct, make sure that we included the data sets that need to be included. And for the land use piece, we shared it with a subset of the technical committee that specializes in land use planning. Again, we just wanted to make sure that we really made sure that the technical memo and the process was robust and included really the frame in the right frame for the community. And then last month, we met with our technical committee and the memo was approved by the technical committee and recommended to move forward to all of you, to the policy committee. So if we go to the next slide, Maya. So here's just one example of the land use visioning scenarios, and this is shown for the orange route. And I will preface it by saying that we are putting no preference towards the orange route. It was simply the easiest one to show in this scale because it is the shortest route. So, but this is an example of the land use scenarios that are shown within the land use technical memo. And then each of these land use scenarios depicts some or all of the 6 land uses that were discussed and explored during the visioning workshops. So any questions so far? Okay, and I know Representative Lamfer, you did send some edits that will be incorporated into the technical memo, and for everyone's sake, they were editorial comments, so we will make sure, but not did not change the content.
Thank you.
So Adam, I will turn it back to you, and Maya, if you want to go to the next slide, and we can have a discussion and move forward with our consensus point.
Okay. So I guess first I want to ask everybody on the policy committee, hopefully you had an opportunity to read the memo. Are there any other comments that any of you would like to make on the memo? And I cannot see you all necessarily, so I'd ask that you just please speak up, and we'll manage the chaos as best we can.
Hi, this is Rhonda from Waltham. I had a question regarding environmental, I think it's called environmental considerations. That's the very last part of the plan, 663. And to me, it's a little unclear if the last line, the potential impacts to community character were identified, including noise and lighting of a new route, if that's only pertaining to the McDonough Drive or Orange Route, I believe, or if that is more general in terms of concerns expressed by participants in most or all of the routes. Because I would say the green route for Waltham, that certainly noise was talked about in the area or the people around me during the workshop. So after that, I have one other question for you.
Rhonda, so I did not personally attend, unfortunately, any of the in-person land use visioning workshops. So I'll let anybody from the team chime in if I'm not speaking correctly. But I remember the comment being more related to, based on reading the meeting summaries, that the comment was more related to all of the new routes. It could have been specific, and in fact, I think it might have actually been more specifically mentioned during the green route listening workshop. But yes, there were definitely concerns about the noise, the potential noise impacts along a future new alternative, as well as how the lighting could change, the visual the visual surroundings and the
Aesthetics.
Yeah, aesthetics. Thank you. It was on the tip of my tongue. Thank you. But I would ask Ken or Jim, do you recall, Mike, is that what you recall?
I'm not familiar enough with the document to say what was on page 663, but yes, I think these comments were more general, that if the meeting notes were probably about the meeting for that route, but they were fairly uniform throughout the different meetings about what the concerns were.
I know there have been concerns about noise on the pink and blue routes
as well.
Yeah,
sure.
So I think it's generic.
Does that help, Rhonda?
Yeah, so I would just request that sentence act more as a summary statement than one that could be interpreted to just one route.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, Rhonda. And really, the potential potential noise impacts as well as the visual impacts would be studied. That would be part of NEPA. So I think we can clear that up by, stating that it might have been specific to a route or a comment, but that it will be addressed for any of the routes moving forward. Or you're suggesting don't even?
No, I think I defer to you all on that. I think specifics help people and it can ward off concerns or future concerns or questions. I think similarly to that segment, because it's the end of the document, it provides an opportunity to say, maybe in some, these are environmental considerations that, whether they're threads or stated as concerns across all of them, in addition to noise and light. Because at least the 2 sessions I went to, and then a Waltham specific listening session that we had with Jim, there are a lot of whether cultural, historical, environmental concerns that come up. And I just feel that it could be better represented in that section. So that was my main concern of the report.
Great, thank you, Rhonda. And Stephanie, I heard you say you would take a look at that and revise it to make sure it covers each of the routes, not just interpreted towards one. Is that correct?
That is correct. And I think we can also, related to Rhonda's second comment, is just make it more clear that this is not the end. This is really the beginning of the environmental review, and that those considerations will be taken during the rest of the PEL study, as well as in a future PEL study, or in a future NEPA process.
Great, thank you, Stephanie. Are there any other members of the policy committee that have questions or concerns for our consultants regarding the land use visioning technical memorandum? Okay, go ahead, Rhonda. You're muted.
So and maybe because I read this, but I wasn't reading every word. But the option to not do anything, is it given equal weight in addition to the options that are outlined? And maybe you don't have to technically, but I'm just thinking of public perception and this as a public document.
So in terms of land use, I think, is that what you're asking with how the no build is the emphasis of no build in the land use document, or just in the study overall?
It's both.
Okay. Because we didn't really create land use scenarios for the no build, because obviously it wouldn't be a new roadway. I think that's a good point, though, and maybe that it needs to be more, it could be a section added to when we go through the scenarios of the alternatives, and just say that the no build would include only routine maintenance, and therefore no land use recommendations are. So that could be more explicitly mentioned. But as far as moving forward, carrying the no build, it does really receive equal weight. It does have to go through the NEPA process. So, even at the end of the evaluation, when, if there are only, a set number of alternatives that would move forward through into the NEPA process, that no build would still be carried through.
Okay. Thank you, Stephanie. Rhonda, I assume you got what you needed out of that? Great. Do any other members of the policy committee have any questions or concerns on the land use visioning technical memorandum?
One question.
Go ahead, Mary.
Should there be a statement that somehow with regards to zoning, like, I'm looking at the pink and blue, and the land use visioning is for commercial. Right now, that's not zoning commercial. So do we need just a blanket statement that says this doesn't imply any zoning changes, but it doesn't preclude any zoning changes? If a route tends to get built? You understand where I'm,
yes, it's not a foregone conclusion, but the city or the municipalities around it may want to, adjust to it. I'm not sure how maybe we can just say that. Stephanie, do you have thoughts for me?
Yeah, I think you're right, Adam. I think that maybe we just need, and I think that's a good suggestion, Mary, is just to make sure so the land use recommendations that are outlined or the land use scenarios that are outlined in the memo will move forward and be incorporated into the final PEL report. And, that'll include some land use recommendations. And I think maybe to your point, we could include a kind of a blanket statement that any land use recommendations that may require additional zoning changes.
And I believe we also have that caveat on each of the map images themselves, if I'm not mistaken. Document,
sure.
Because we made sure to talk about this during the development of this chapter, if I'm not mistaken. So I think there is
it says changes in property ownership or other legal condition.
Oh, okay.
So I just like,
yeah, we can,
zoning just seems like we should mention it somehow.
yeah, okay.
You
So I
want to
think-
spell it out as opposed to it being just a legal condition of some type.
But my recollection is that the purpose of doing the land use visioning section is that as part of the implementation plan, the team could make recommendations to the municipalities about if this is the desired zoning, here are the changes that would be needed. But this isn't imposing those changes.
Right.
This is just saying, here's what would happen for them to occur.
Yep, that's
sir.
correct.
Stephanie, we have another question in the room.
Okay.
Are we still looking at option 2 and 3, going through the mobile home park and going right by UTC?
I would tell you they don't go right through the mobile home park and that they're not taking any of the mobile home park, but they are close to it. And yes, those options are still on the table. I understand that your comment at the beginning was that you were opposed to them.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I don't know, I think it's a ridiculous idea. The best option, I think, is option 1. The least amount of movement of people, and you're going through a lot of
and
farmland.
Right, and that's what this study is about, is to determine that. And
right,
and as part of your public comment, basically we've reported that in this meeting.
Right.
There are other people that get to comment too, but yes, so appreciate your being here and telling us what you think.
For the record, that comment is from, I just want to make sure I have the name documented.
Alan Morey.
Thank you, Alan.
Okay, thank you, Delia. Okay, are there any other comments, questions, concerns from members of the policy committee? Okay, hearing none, are you ready to move on the consensus point based on your review of the land use visioning technical memorandum? Do you recommend the land use visioning scenarios for approval and is changed by this? And please note, we also are willing to take additional comments up until July 31st. But what we're looking for is a consensus of the policy committee. Will you accept the land use visioning technical memorandum? So Delia, I would ask you to go ahead and I would ask you to poll the policy committee, please.
Sure, Adam. I will go down the list, and Adam, I'll end it with you. And I'll go through the whole list in case people have joined late. Bill Smith, if you're here, support, yes or no? Katie Gallagher?
Rhonda asked a question in the chat as to whether we are approving the document with the recommended changes.
And I would say, yes, we are incorporating those changes. I did not get any pushback or any argument against them from any members of the policy committee. So yes, we are.
Thank you. I vote yes.
Thank you, Katie. Brent Rakowski? Clark Kinsdale? Representative Lamper?
Yes.
Dickie Austin?
Yes.
Thank you. Representative McGill? Ron Redmond?
Yes.
Jeff Nelson? Jesse Devlin? Matthew Arancio?
Yes.
Mary Rudd?
Yes.
Representative Barong?
Yes.
Mike Audie? Rennie Perry? Phil Summers?
Yes.
Rhonda Williams?
Yes.
And Adam Luigi.
Yes.
Thank you. So we have received 10 yeses, and that meets the quorum.
Great. Thank you very much, Delia. So we will advance beyond that. So Stephanie, would you, or actually it's Jim, pardon me.
Yeah, thank you, Adam. Hi, folks. Jim Gish here. We can move on to the next slide, Delia. Thank you. I'm going to spend just a couple of minutes giving you an update here on the community engagement side of this study. And while numbers don't tell the full story of our engagement, they give you a sense of scope here. And our level of engagement during the first 6 months of 2024 has been on a par with the second half of 2023. So we'll look at stakeholder meetings. And here I've been particularly pleased to be invited into many homes. And whether that's a home in Waltham on the westbound lane of Route 17, a home on Hopkins Road in Panton overlooking Otter Creek, or a home on Sand Road in Vergennes overlooking BGS-owned land, which is being worked by a local farmer. I've had the pleasure of being invited into folks' homes and with an opportunity to discuss the PEL study. I've met with many business owners. I haven't met with everyone on Main Street in Vergennes yet, but I plan to, and I've had very productive discussions with town leaders. The PEL team planning meetings are important because I'm always on the agenda, and so that's an opportunity for me to share what I've learned in the field with the rest of the team and to inform future activity here. Jumping down to what I think was the most interesting aspect of my work this year was the meetings with individual policy committee members. And the purpose of that, working with Adam, was to just give everyone on the policy committee an update on where we are with the policy, with the study in between meetings, but also to get a sense from policy committee members, where do you see this going, the study going? Where would you like it to go? And so those were very informative conversations and helped shape our activity moving forward. We can move to the next slide, Delia. So these are the objectives that formed our plan of action this year. And I want to talk for a moment about building awareness of the PEL process. One of the things I learned from my 6 years working as community liaison for the Middlebury Rail and Bridge project is that it's important in these large studies to define your opportunity. And so that was one of my messages to the folks I met with was look for your win. What is your win here in this study? Define your opportunity. The flip side of this is the limits of the PEL process. And we've talked at length about how this is a front end to a NEPA study. It represents a narrowing of alternatives, but it's not a final solution. It's a step toward the solution. So I think that awareness of opportunity and limits has been important message I've been delivering to the community. Documenting concerns and recommendations. What's important here to me is the second noun here, recommendations. Part of my job is to document the concerns that folks have, but we've also got a lot of ideas that have come back into the team and have kind of helped shape our action here. I had an opportunity to walk several of the routes here with local property owners and homeowners, and that's a plus too. Encouraging conversation and collaboration. We can flip back, there we are. this is what's really important to me is, this is a proactive team here. We're not sitting, waiting for emails to come in or people to call us and then responding to those. We are very specifically seeking out those whose voices should be heard but have not been in touch. I'll give you two quick examples here. One is a Ferrisburg farmer who has about 200 acres worth of land on VGS and Vermont Fish and Wildlife land that's north of the river in Vergennes. So I reached out to him and had an opportunity to talk with him about the project and the potential impacts on his work. Second, I hadn't heard from the owners of Comfort Hill Kennel. And so I had an opportunity I reached out to them and had an opportunity to meet with them to talk about potential impacts of the orange, blue, and pink routes. So I would encourage the policy committee, if there are folks that we should be reaching out to, and whether we have or haven't yet, or you're not sure, please let me know. Because I am in the business of meeting with anyone who would like to talk about the PEL study, who has information to share about the PEL study, who has an opinion about the PEL study. So let me stop right there before I wrap up and ask the policy committee, and you can send me an email or give me a call, or you could mention it right here. If there's anyone that you know of that should be reached out to that we haven't talked to yet. I'll take a pause there if anybody wants to chime in. Okay, I'll take that as we're doing a great job. And also as a request to please be in touch with me. I think you all have my phone number and my my email address. I'm happy to do further work there. So if we can move on to the final slide there, Delia. Here's what's in store over the next few weeks. Project transparency has been important, and particularly as we move from a very active fall with the public survey, followed by the land use workshops, a lot of activity wrapping up in January. And then we've moved into more of an evaluation phase. And so our strategy here is to maintain project transparency and keep people informed through a series of short informative posts that are on the PEL study progress and next steps here. In fact, we're just releasing a new one today that looks out ahead over the next few months, and I'll be continuing to do these as we move forward. Other than that, it's just keeping eyes and ears open, and that means keeping the PEL study team informed and up to date on community concerns, and then making the rounds and making sure our stakeholders are informed. So we've got this two-way street between what's happening on the PEL team and the community, and between the community and the PEL team. So I look forward to continuing my work here with you all and with the communities impacted, and look forward to another 6 months of good, productive work.
Great, thank you, Jim. Does anybody have any questions for Jim? Okay, Stephanie, do you want to take us on to next steps?
Yes.
I
So
think we have a
I'm going to talk
hand
a
up
little.
before you move on, Stephanie. Looks like
Excuse
Mel
me.
has his hand
Mel.
up.
Yeah, thank you, Adam. I just wanted when the last gentleman was talking and asking the committee if they were missing anybody, I didn't really think that was an opportunity for me to say anything. But I do want to let the committee know that nobody has ever knocked on my door. My wife and I own 3.5 acres, single-family residence to the west of Otter Creek Park, and no one has ever talked to us. I have attended a number of meetings, but no one has ever talked to us. And one of the things, I actually don't really need anybody to come meet with me. I've been just patiently waiting for this committee to get to a point of making a recommendation, because obviously if the route that runs adjacent to my house and the Otter Creek Park is removed from the list for whatever reason, then obviously I don't need to speak to anybody. So I've just been sitting back waiting for the policy committee to reach its conclusion.
Okay, thank you for that. Mel, we may have Jim reach out anyway, or we'll make that offer to have Jim reach out, and then you can make your own decision. And really your question is where we were headed with the next slide. So it's what are the policy committee's next steps? So I'm gonna let Stephanie take us there if it works for everybody.
Yep, that was a great transition, Mel and Adam. So really what comes next? So there's we have this slide broken out into really kind of two sides. So the technical work and then the related meetings, committee meetings, and then outreach activities. So our team is moving forward with identifying evaluation criteria and metrics that we're going to use to then screen the alternatives. So these evaluation criteria are, they do tie into the purpose and needs. So safety, resiliency, economic vitality, equity, mobility, and access. I think I got them all. But so we've developed screening criteria that will really look at all of those items, and then we're going to screen the alternatives. So if you recall, when we started this study, we kind of just had like swaths along our potential routes. Now we really have conceptual designs of the alternatives. So the four the four new roadways as well as the fifth build alternative, and those will all be screened. We'll be identifying environmental impacts and then also potential mitigation for those build alternatives, and then comparing them to the no build alternative. Another next step is that we'll be working on developing an implementation plan. So Mike, he talked a little bit, mentioned earlier about the land use recommendations. So those are going to be folded into an implementation plan. The implementation will spell out how VTrans and Federal Highway will move any of the recommended alternatives forward through the NEPA process. And part of that is it steps to do that next step, which it will include the land use recommendations, and it'll also include funding and financing. So that implementation plan isn't something that is always included in a PEL study, but this is something that we, the consultant team and the VTrans and ACRPC team really feel is a necessary part, so that we can really help move forward one or more of the alternatives. And I want to just step back for a minute. So the evaluation will come with a recommendation on one or more of the alternatives. How many, whether some get dropped out or how many move forward at this time, we don't know because we haven't done the evaluation yet. So both of those pieces then will be wrapped up into a final PEL document, which will really include all of the pieces that we've been working on the last 3 years. So the evaluation, the implementation plan, the recommendation, those will be topics, and I'll get into that a little bit more about with the policy committee. But those will be conversations for, we envision 2 to 3 technical committee meetings. So again, the technical committee, they review the data, the methodology, and make sure everything is sound. And then we envision 2 to 3 policy committee meetings, and that's where we'll be really looking for a recommendation from the policy committee. And then we plan to have one public information meeting. It potentially could be more. Right now, we're thinking one public information meeting, and during that meeting, we would be sharing the results of the evaluation and any recommended alternatives. So I'll go to the next slide and go into a little bit more detail what we'll be looking at with the policy committee. So again, it'll be 2 to 3 meetings. We envision that one of them, hopefully we can have by the end of this year, and then one or more in early 2025. So what we envision during those meetings, we would be asking you to review the evaluation criteria. Again, the criteria will be looped back and based on the purpose and need, which has already been approved, has already been reviewed. Some of those components: mobility, access, land use, quality of life, safety, circulation, resiliency, and economic vitality. We will then be reviewing the results of the alternatives evaluation with you. That'll be in the form of an evaluation matrix. And then we'll also identify potential impacts. Oh, next slide, Maya. Thank you. we'll be looking at potential impacts and then potential mitigations. And then we'll also be outlining next steps. So what areas do we need to investigate further? Maybe we don't have enough information, but we want to look at a little bit, take a deeper dive. What permitting would be needed, and really we'll be kind of outline those next steps. We will be looking for you to provide input on a locally preferred alternative. So we'll present the results to you, but we want to hear from you. What is the recommendation that you would like to bring forward to V-Trans for further project development? And then we'll also be looking for approval of the future tech memo. So that would be a tech memo describing the alternatives evaluation, the criteria, the evaluation metrics, matrix that I mentioned, potential impacts, potential mitigation, and next steps. We will be looking for a recommendation and a review of the implementation plan, and then a approval of the final PEL report. Anything more you want to add on that, Adam?
So thank you, Stephanie. Yeah, this I think this slide's really important for the policy committee because it's really I'll call it the meat or the teeth of our the responsibility that we've taken on being on the policy committee. So you know, the planning team is going to make recommendations to us basically within the alternatives that are outlined. And what I'm hoping that we will be able to do as the policy committee is come to a consensus on some of those recommendations. We can accept all of them. We can accept some of them. We can put forward a preferred alternative and then perhaps other alternatives. But I also want the policy committee to know that just like the planning team is making recommendations to us, we can put our stamp on it, our unique stamp on it, and come to some conclusions and make recommendations. But because the recommendations are for the NEPA process, which is a federal process, the agencies that control the NEPA process, Federal Highway, EPA, federal EPA, the Army Corps of Engineers, they may demand that certain alternatives of the ones that we've chosen are also included. So we've consulted with our federal partners all along the way, and we will continue to do that. So know that we have an important role in outlining the locally preferred alternatives and coming to consensus on that. And then we need to also listen to our federal partners so that we can move through the NEPA process as smoothly as we can. And I hope that makes sense to everybody. Okay, hearing nothing, I did see, I think it was Rhonda might have put a question in the chat, Stephanie.
I did not see that. Let me pull it up here. Yeah, so Rhonda, do you mind if I read your question? Just for anybody that hasn't seen it. Okay, so does safety, circulation, and resiliency category include anticipated climate change impacts and how they might influence respective options? So I don't think they possibly resiliency, but I think those would be. Yeah, I don't think we're getting really to that level. We will be looking at air quality and assessing, potential impacts of how air quality can be reduced with as you have lower truck volumes going along Route 22 A Main Street. And then we'll be looking qualitatively how you could have changes in emissions related to rerouting trucks along a new roadway. So that'll be something that we'll be looking at. But I don't think we'll be getting quite into, but if that's something you would like us to include in more of a qualitative way, we could certainly look at that and circle back with you.
I don't know how others feel about it, but I am, as a select board meeting member, definitely seeing the impacts on local roads from these more intense rain events. And And to me, at least, it would be something that we would incorporate any more recent data on what is occurring in this region and what it may look like in 10 to 15, 20 years. So if that's possible, I would vote for that, but defer to other members of the committee.
Okay. So Rhonda, I think we're gonna, right now, the technical committee actually is working with the team on the evaluation criteria. So I think what we do is take your question, your suggestion that we add that as a criteria to the technical committee and to your study committee, and let them make the decision as to whether to incorporate it. And then we will look at the final results as the policy committee. But we're really leaving the study team and the technical committee to work on the details of that. And then we evaluate the data that they put forward to us. Does that make sense?
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Rhonda.
Does anyone else have any questions, concerns? Any other members of the policy committee have questions about their role and where we're going and how this study will shape up? Okay, hearing none, I think we are at basically the end of our program. I'll give anybody one last chance to make a comment. I think we're a little bit ahead of schedule, so I will take any other comments right now. Comments, questions, concerns? Okay. Hearing none, thank you all for joining us this afternoon. Thank you for evaluating the technical land use memo. And we will obviously be back in touch with our evaluation review and other work. So thank you all and have a nice afternoon.
Thank you.
Stephanie, did we have a slide just on contacts and such if people want to...
We did. Maya, if you don't mind just going to the next slide. And then I think that was just the purpose of the, yep, there were right there. So it just has our study team email and a reminder, if you do have any additional comments on the land use visioning tech memo, please email us. You can use that Gmail account, or you can email me or any of P-Trans ACRP staff directly. We have our study website and then also Jim's contact information as our community liaison.
Great, thank you, Stephanie. So I think I'm going to exercise my power as the chair and adjourn by unanimous consent because I didn't hear any other questions or concerns. So thank you all. Have a very good rest of your day, and I appreciate your participating in this process and the comments that you've made. Have a good day.
Thank you, everyone.